Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. Make sure you're reading Omari Sankofa II, O2, on the Detroit Free Press. And while content's been a little slow, make sure you get subscribed to the Motor City Hoops Substack. Absolutely free. There will be content essentially every day once the season gets going over there. And I think I have some new contributors that are coming on, throughout the season. So YouTube user says, interesting recording time. Listen, guys, it's the fall. I'm coaching football right now. All three of my kids are in sports. So, like, for example, tonight, our youngest son has a flag football game. The oldest son has flag football practice. I have football practice. Like, I told O2 and Wes, I said, hey, for a few weeks here, maybe a couple weeks, unless we go on a Sunday, we may need to go in the morning before school. So if you're with us, hopefully you're not stuck in traffic. Maybe you're sitting at the office with a nice cup of coffee before your boss comes in or whatever you're doing. If you're listening after, obviously we appreciate you, but there might be a few of these O2 over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I feel like we kind of fall into this routine every year. The one thing we cut out after our first year on the pod was like, we can't do like the super late ones, like 11 p.m. or 10:30 or whatever. Like that was just the one thing we cut off. Like I'll happily wake up at 7 a.m. for a 7:30 pod. Like who doesn't want the Pistons Post in the morning? I want the Pistons Post in the morning. You want the Pistons Post in the morning.
Yeah,
people want the Pistons Post in the morning.
That's right. Like hopefully, I mean, if you listen, I already worked out this morning. And I was listening to a podcast. Now, unfortunately, it was an 0-2, The World is Ending Chiefs podcast for me. But hopefully we are in the ears of some Pistons fans out there taking a morning walk, maybe getting an exercise in. 01 here says good morning. He's on his way into work. So a little bit different schedule. And I'm with you. Listen, Sam made me record after playoff games last year, and that was a grind. I was exhausted by the end of the playoffs because some of those games would end so late, and then we'd record, and it's an hour and a half and all of that. YouTube user says he is at work. So, yeah, if you're with us this morning, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Let us know where you're listening from. I think our good friend Keith Smith over on their podcast, The Front Office Show, they say you do the little trick where you put you put something around your ear or whatever, kind of tuck it in and listen at work who's really doing anything at 7:30 at work, right? Like we're just chilling here to start the day, right? Now, I'm sure you guys are all grinding. We appreciate you very much. So let's get into this O2. We're going to talk, Wes gave us some, I don't want to say superlatives. They're more like category predictions, but it's not like who was number one or anything like that. But before we do that, let's just get a opinion, update, whatever, on Malik Beasley and that situation with the Pistons. Anything you have? And then after you kind of get that out, we can talk about, do we think he fits on this roster? Would he make sense on the roster? Anything like that?
Yeah. So for those who missed it, over the weekend, I wrote about Malik Beasley's situation and not necessarily new info in there, but more so, just up to date. Here's where the situation is. And obviously he's under federal investigation. He's not the target, but the subject, which means there's still a risk of prosecution. And then there's the NBA investigation as well, which is in its final stages. So we'll see when these scenarios resolve. But long story short, it's just highly unlikely he signs with the Pistons or any other team until those investigations resolve. When I published the story, I feel like most people get it, but it seemed like some people were still kind of confused, like why, just sign him now, or this doesn't make any sense. But it's just random example. Let's say some trade goes down at the last minute, like Cat and Julius Randle last year. Let's say a useful player sent to a team that for whatever reason, they want to send them back out. If you're the Pistons, you have a roster spot. You could be in that conversation. If you're the Pistons and you sign a player, obviously you can't. And then you also carry the risk of, okay, well, that player, is now in a scenario where he can't play. And, then you use that roster spot and you kind of jammed yourself in a corner and moved yourself for opportunities for no real reason at all. So long story short, I think once Beasley's investigations resolve, that's when we'll begin to see some movement. But until then, it's just going to be not a stalemate, but it's just going to be on ice essentially until he can move forward with his own career.
Yeah, so as M. Wesley says, like, do you get the feeling that Pistons or any team would be willing to risk signing Beasley before it's officially resolved? It sounds
and
like
my answer
not.
is more than likely no.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have a very high degree of confidence that nothing's going to come from it, which you probably wouldn't get until it's officially resolved. No, like there's just no reason to risk it. And if you're the Pistons, like you don't need to work Beasley into your system. You had him all of last year. Like you know exactly what he's going to do, how he's going to fit. So, I think it's just easier, for all parties just to allow this to be in the past before you move forward. I don't think Beasley wants to be in a scenario where, he's reporting to camp and kind of dealing with all this with these investigations lingering in the background. It's just I talked to his lawyer. The expectation is that it's not going to be any movement until after the fact.
I do want to talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll get into the rest of the episode. But real quick, M. Wesley also asked, what time is it where Sam lives? Omari, what time do you think it is where Sam Vecini lives?
I'm going to guess between 6 and 9 p.m.
Close. It's 9:40 p.m. So,
9:40 p.m. Okay.
I usually Sam and I, if we need to conversate, we have a little bit of time when I first wake up in the morning before he goes to bed, and then it seems like he's waking up, mid-afternoon my time. So, and then Will J, what up, though, fellas? Catching a live show on the way to work. I love it. So again, if you're with us live this morning, little bit different recording time. Let us know where you're listening from. Obviously, drop questions in the comments. The outline is full in terms of we have a full episode for you, but it's definitely this episode, probably next week as well, O2, are a couple episodes where we can take questions, right? So if you have something that you've asked in the past that we haven't got to, or you got, some lingering question you want to get out there, throw it in the chat. And I feel like this is the type of episode we can get to that. Here's what I want to ask. Let's say everything moves past. It's all on the up and up. Malik Beasley's going to play in the NBA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you see the path for Malik Beasley making sense on this roster? Because my short answer is yes, and I'll expand on that. But I do feel like I've seen some Pistons fans question the rotation and the minutes and how does it all play out. Do you think it's a no? Where are you on the scale of they should bring in Malik Beasley if everything is clear and they're able to do so?
Yeah, I mean, if the question is purely, does he fit and does he help this team, I think the answer more than likely is yes. Can you guarantee him the same role he had last season? Probably not. But, to have Duncan Robinson and Malik Beasley, as your shooters off the bench, I think that's a very, very, very good scenario to have. I think that gives you, flexibility going forward. So the Pistons have Beasley's non-bird rights, which is basically when a player signs a one-year deal, you have an exception where you can sign them to 120% of whatever they made last season, and that's a cap exception. So he was on the books for $6 million last year. They could bring him back at a salary starting at $7.2 million, yep. And over 3 years, I think that'd be around $22 million. Over 4 years, that goes up to like 31 or something like that. So you could get him under a multi-year deal if that's what he wants to do. And obviously that gives you a little bit more flexibility when you get to the deadline. Like, okay, we have Bees, we have Karras, we have Duncan Robinson, we have all these wings. Where do we stand? Are there any moves we can make to, flesh out the rest of our roster? Because if you sign Beasley, then that's a team that I think skews small. And they already skew small, I think, in some ways. I think they got bigger on the wing, but, they're pretty much the same at the, forward and center positions. So long story short, like I think Bees helps you on the court, from a salary standpoint. Like you're still getting him on an absolute steal of a salary, that's $7.2 million. And that opens up options down the line. So I think for a variety of reasons, like that would still make sense for the Pistons.
And just so everybody's aware, because some people may reference or go back to the contract offer that was out there, like essentially the day this all initially came out. Remember, that was going to be a contract given to Malik Beasley with the non-tax MLE. not his non-bird rights. So the numbers that Omari just threw at you guys was his non-bird rights numbers, which is, I think, 120% of the previous year. So he's on $6 million last year. That's at 7.2. I assume I think it's 5% or 8. I don't remember exactly. 5% raises for that type of contract. So however that projects out over 2 years, 3 years, whatever you want to do. But that's why that 3-year deal comes in at a number lower than whatever. It would have been a 4-year.
I think it would have been 3 years, 42 million.
42. Because the non-tax MLE was roughly 14, whatever. So just so it's clear for people, they understand why that number would not be on the even if Malik Beasley is like, hey, he's clear, he had nothing to do with it, everything's on the up and up. Detroit does not have they don't have the means to give him that number anymore. It's the number that you outlined. I just want to make sure everybody understood why to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, and because there are really no other exceptions around the league that could be used in that boat, the Pistons, I think Brooklyn may still have some cap space. Like, I don't necessarily see them shelling out for Malik Beasley, given that 2/3 of their rosters.
They just traded for another young guy. Like, I listen to more. I love Kobe Buffkin. You won't find a bigger Kobe Buffkin fan, but I'm like, what are we doing right now? You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Aruna says, if Beasley signs a 1-year contract, do we get his bird rights next year? I believe yes. I think you could have non-consecutive 1-year deals to activate that. And we could double check, but I am pretty sure.
I am texting Keith Smith right now. Yeah. He lives on the East Coast, so he may be awake. So if he texts me back, this is one that I am not sure about, Aruna. So this is a great question. I'm texting Keith. I'll text another cap guy as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure non-consecutive 1-year deals could work. They just count the actual time you're with the roster, and not necessarily the
length of the contract, right?
So we can, we'll definitely verify that. Don't want to put false information out there, but assuming that you can do that, then obviously that creates a scenario where basically Bees does exactly what he did last year, sign a 1-year, $7.2 million contract. You hit the market next summer. Now Pistons have your bird rights because you were there for 2 years.
Which is very important for him in terms of the amount of money that they could give him.
Exactly. And, of course, that would enable the Pistons to, not need cap space to sign them to whatever number, and, Bees gets more money, and it's a win for everybody. So assuming that the Pistons would get his bird rights, then, that's absolutely a potential scenario because he essentially lost – if you're looking at a 3-year deal, he essentially lost half of his salary. Like, you're going from $14 million a year to a little bit over $7 million a year. So I think there would be incentive for him definitely to do that.
Yeah, and here's where I want to just in terms of the roster, I understand people who say, who's not going to get as many minutes. Like, we went through our stats predictions and we struggled to get to a realistic points per game and all of that. Keith texted me back early bird rights. So he would have early bird rights. I think because it would only be 2 years. At that point,
early bird is 2 years. Bird is 3.
3, yeah. So early bird rights would give them 175%. So 7.2 million. Maybe O2 can do the math for me there. If he was at 7.2 next year,
around 11 or 12 million a year.
Yeah, and then 100. Yeah, then they could sign him for 175% of that. So that's what you'd be looking at with Beasley. It would
be 12.6 billion. It would start at 12.6 billion.
So again, just to, for comparison's sakes, that's a few million less. That's probably 2 million less than what the non-tax MLE is going to be next offseason. But you're a lot closer, right? Like you're getting to a reasonable number there. And I understand the logjam people could see with the roster. Here is what I will say. To me, they have a 9-man rotation right now. I kind of like the Javonte Green signing as a depth piece. I like Marcus Sasser as a depth piece. I like Paul Reed as your third center. Like, I like those guys. But I don't think that they have a full 10-man rotation. Now, does Malik Beasley slot into the spot that I think they need to add to fulfill a 10-man rotation? No. I would rather them, Trey Lyles ended up going overseas, which is a whole nother conversation. But I do think if Asar is going to play some time at the 4, if you see some Ron Holland at the 4, maybe there is some Isaiah Stewart at the 4 with, whatever. I do think there is a path to Malik Beasley being part of your 10-man rotation. And here's the other thing I'll say. how good do you feel about the floor spacing on this team in any game that Duncan Robinson doesn't play 0-2? To me, it could be a little scary. Like, Jaden Ivey shot 40. We're big Jaden Ivey fans here, but it's not the same level of gravity. Karis LeVert shoots the ball well sometimes. It's not the same level of gravity. If even Sasser, it's more on the ball 3-point shooting. Tobias, not super high volume. So my thing is, like, is it the worst thing to make sure you have two of those guys? So that way in a game where one of them doesn't play, you at least have the other one. So just something to think about there.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan Robinson's elite. Bees is elite. If you, back to your question of if they lose Duncan Robinson for some time, how confident do you feel about their spacing? It's not really at all, because you're at that point hoping on internal improvement, which
that's
could
fair.
work.
There could be, sure,
but I still think you need just like that absolute knockdown off ball threat. And like, even if J.I. maintains 40%, even if Cade gets to like 37, like, you still need somebody in that Beasley or Duncan Robinson type role, I believe. So yeah, that's another reason. Like, you don't necessarily want Duncan Robinson single-handedly anchoring your spacing next season. Because keep in mind, they lost Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. So, that's two vets last year that, are not here this year, and you've got to replace those shots somehow.
So real quick, Harry Moreau asked, this is from Order of the Blazing Horse. Make sure you're checking out their pod. What up, though? What was his next closest successful season? Harry, let me know. Are you talking about Beasley, like in terms of his 3-point shooting, or let me know exactly what you're asking there, because I want to make sure we answer that correctly. YouTube user says, I have an Excel sheet that gets Cade, Ivy, Asar 30-plus minutes and all the other guards at around 20. All the lineups make logical sense as well. This is a 10-man rotation with Beasley. Interesting. So, again, I think it's doable. Harry says yes. So, looking at Malik's 3-point shooting seasons, I will wait and go to 2021 with Minnesota, because anything before that, the volume wasn't there. So, 2021 with the Timberwolves, as a Disney Plus Hulu ad pops up in the middle of my Basketball Real GM page. No, thank you. Now I have to refresh, guys. So 2021 with the Timberwolves, he shot 8.7 threes a game and made 40%, but that was only 37 games, excuse me. The next year he shot 8.1 and was at 38%. Milwaukee, the year before Detroit, he shot 6.9 and was 41. I mean, these back-to-back seasons are pretty impressive, but the next closest type of thing was 2021 with Minnesota. And again, he only played 37 games. He averaged 20 points a game that season, by the way, but in 37 games. So I think Harry's point here, and this is something we've talked about, O2, is how do we know Malik was going to replicate and, do that in, 27, 28 minutes a night? So I think if everything plays out a certain way, bringing Beasley back makes a lot of sense. I think the roster could use it. After this break, we're going to get back into the Pistons roster, and we're going to talk about some of these statistical categories. Who's the number 2 scorer? Who's the number 2 assist guy? Who's number 2 in deflections for the Detroit Pistons? We'll get into all of that right after this.
Okay, so we're back for segment 2, and we're just going to do a category leaders segment. I think we could realistically guess who's going to lead the Pistons in various categories last year. I'll put good money on Cade, leading them in points and assists. I'll put good money on Jalen Duren, leading them in rebounds. But we can debate the number 2s, and I think that's really kind of long-term for this, ongoing get the Pistons back to the finals project. Like, the number 2s are obviously going to be a really, really, really big part of that. So we could start off with number 2 for points per game. Bryce, I'm assuming you have Cade leading them next season. So with that, who would be your number 2?
Yeah, I mean, we did our point, our predictions episode. I don't have a hot take here, guys. I mean, I don't even. I've long said I thought there's that Cade Cunningham might be the best player on the Pistons championship team, and he may not be the leading scorer. I'm slowly having to backtrack on that. It looks like that may not be the case. I think there's a world where it's closer to like Cade averages 24 and the number 2 guy averages 23 or something like that. But the scoring may stay higher than what I thought, the first few years of his career. So no hot takes from me. The number 2 score, so for reference for Pistons fans, last season, J.I. was at 17.6 before he got hurt. Beasley ended up at 16. Tobias was 4th on this team in the regular season at 13.7. I just don't know that there's a ton of competition here. I think it's going to be Jaden Ivey. And even if, my thing, O2, is even if Jaden Ivey doesn't take the jump that we kind of predicted on our stats prediction episode, I still think he's the second leading scorer. Like, even if J.I.'s at 15 or 16, is there anybody else we see averaging 15 or 16? Like, it's not Tobias. I don't think Ausar takes that type of jump. I guess maybe some people could think Duren, but like Duren's probably not playing 30 minutes a night because you got to play Isaiah Stewart. So I pretty solidly, confidently say Jaden Ivey here.
Yeah, I also say Jaden Ivey. 17.6 points per game last season. And like you said, like that's more or less unchallenged on this team. Like if we're even talking guys who I think could crack like 18 per game within the next few seasons, like honestly, my next guess for this roster would probably be a guy like Ron, who's got a little bit more, I think, on-ball creation
That's
juice.
YouTube users. Ron is the second leading scorer if something insane happens.
So, if we're talking about capability, then, I certainly think if all goes well for Ron and he's getting downhill and getting to the line, there's an outcome for him where he's averaging 20 points per game. But the minutes more than likely will not be there next season for that. J.I. is just the easy guess here. He did it last season. It would have maintained it had he not got hurt. And even coming off the injury, you hope he comes back. And, the first step's not going anywhere. The shot, ideally, is not going anywhere. So we agree on this one. I'm going with J.I.
I think the one other guy I'll throw in that I think maybe is second on the team in scoring in multiple games next year is Karis LeVert. This is a guy that, he had a season, 5 seasons ago where he averaged 20 points. Again, only 47 games. Had the next season, he averaged 17 points in 58 games. Now, he hasn't hit that recently. Last year in his 26 games with Atlanta, he was just under 15 points per game. If that role is bigger, I think that only happens if we don't see some of the young guys fulfilling the role in the necessary way. But again, if we're going like outside the box answers or whatever, I think Karis LeVert will be second on the team in scoring multiple games this year. I think Jalen Duren would be an interesting one here. Like, what if he starts hitting the little push floater? What if the free throw percentage goes back up? Some of those type of things. You could see him, mostly, the downhill drive. He does. JD is a guy that gets to operate with the ball in his hands a little bit. So I will stay with Jaden Ivey as my answer, but some other interesting names there. Speaking of Jalen Duren, I don't have a hot take that he won't be the Pistons' leading rebounder next season. O2, we'll see if you have that hot take. But the bigger question is, who will be number 2 on the team in rebounds per game? Number 2 on the Detroit Pistons in rebounds per game.
So I believe second in rebounds per game for him last season was Cade Cunningham. And the only other player who would have been sort of within that category is,
Tobias
was up there a bit. Stu, it's more so a minutes thing with him.
Yep.
Why I think he was, between 5 and 6 or 6 and 7 around there. But I'm going to go with Cade. I think he is, okay, so I'm looking at their numbers last year, right? Okay, so Cade was second last year, 6.1 rebounds. But Tobias had 5.9, and Isaiah Stewart had 5.5, and Ausar actually had 5.1.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to go with Ausar Thompson.
There
he's
you
play
go.
more minutes.
There you go. That's the answer.
Yeah, he's going to play more minutes. And he was just half a rebound behind Cade last season, probably playing half his minutes. So, yeah, I could easily see Ausar averaging 7 or 8, honestly, if he's cracking 30.
Yep, I'm going to go Ausar as well. Listen, YouTube users bringing up Tobias. I think Tobias is a really good answer. My thing is, I think Tobias's minutes go down. I think his role goes down. Maybe if his role goes down, maybe there's an argument to he's even better on the boards. I just think Ausar's minutes are going up. And here's the stat that does it for me. when you look at per 36 minutes, and listen, I realize Asar's not going to play 36 minutes. I get it, but I think he's going to play. He's at 8.2. That's 2 more rebounds per 36 than Cade, and 1.5 more per 36 than Tobias. So I just think if Asar gets to a certain minutes per game, he's definitely going to be the guy that ends up being second. So Isaiah Stewart's, for what it's worth, when you look per 36, is second behind only Jalen Duren, but I don't think either of us believes Stu's going to get those minutes, and that's no shot at Stu whatsoever. We obviously love Isaiah Stewart, think he's an important part of the team, but I do, here's the thing, O2, Asar was only 1 rebound behind Cade Cunningham and played almost 13 less minutes. And it's the same with Tobias. 0.8 behind Tobias in 9 less minutes per game. So I don't even think, it's not even a 30-minute per game thing for Asar. I think if he plays 5 more minutes per game, he's averaging more. And I think the other thing is, who's on the court together? Asar plays a ton of minutes with Tobias, with Cade in the starting lineup. And I think he just naturally takes their rebounds away because, quite frankly, he's more athletic and can get to the ball before them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at their per 100 numbers from last season. Duran, 19.1. Isaiah Stewart, 13.4. Asar is the only other player on the team to crack double-digit rebounds per 100, and he averaged 11. After that, you get Tobias Harris, who had 9. So per 100, Asar is averaging 2 whole more rebounds than Tobias Harris. So, yeah, just from a minute standpoint, honestly, I think I'll be surprised if it's not Asar. He is, like, if I'm looking at his numbers on cleaning the glass, like, for his size, he's got to be like a 99% rebounder. What's also interesting is that Cade per 100 averaged 8.3 rebounds, which is the same as Fontecchio and Ron Holland. Yeah. And his rebounds are like a clear step above all the other guards on the team. So, Cade might be number 3. But I can definitely see a Asar just like having unbelievable numbers for a guy who's 6'6".
I think the rest of the league and fans and whatever found out how good Cade Cunningham was last year. I still don't think they understand and appreciate his all-around game, and I think this is the year, now that he's on the radar going into the year, now that the Pistons are on the national radar in some sense going into the year, like they're consistently picked in the top 4 or 5 in the East in every podcast I listen to. People are going to understand Cade's all-around game, and that goes to the defense and the rebounding. Aruna says Cade number 2 because he'll be on triple-double watch every 5th game. Interesting point. YouTube user Tobias plays a ton of minutes because he's our biggest 4. I do agree with that. Like, there's definitely minutes there. The other thing I'll say with Asar, though, is I do think they'll let Asar go grab rebounds. Like, I don't think Cade gets the Russell Westbrook treatment where everybody else boxes out and lets Cade get the rebound so he can start the break. I think this team is very comfortable and maybe even encourages Asar getting the rebound so Asar can lead the break at times as well. So YouTube user asks, who plays more minutes, Asar or Tobias? I will say Tobias still plays more minutes, but I think it's much closer than last season when Tobias was 31.6 and Asar was 22.5.
I think Tobias averages more the first half of the season. I think Asar averages more the second half of the season.
Interesting. Okay, let's go to one that I think is really fascinating, and that's assists per game. And again, hot take if you want to say not Cade Cunningham, but then there is a litany of other players, O2, Jaden Ivey, Asar, Jalen Duren, Karis LeVert. Like, where do you go for number 2 on this team in assists per game? For reference, obviously Dennis Schroeder was second last season in his 28 games at 5.3. J.I. was third at 4. If you look, let's just go per 100 possessions. You used that a second ago. Cade's number 1. Then it was Schroeder, Sasser, Jaden Ivey. Then down to Duren. Duren and Asar were tied, about 1.5 behind J.I. I was going to look at playoffs. I think those numbers are kind of interesting sometimes. In the playoffs, it was Schroeder and then Jalen Duren right behind Schroeder, third. So what's your answer here, O2?
Yeah, I think just off of opportunity, like, I want to guess Jaden Ivey. Like, he's going to have the ball a lot when Cade sits. And like I don't know if they're running pick and rolls with him or if they're trying to get him involved in more off ball stuff with Asar and Duran complimenting. But yeah, I just think Kazai is going to have the ball. He's probably number two. If you told me a year from now that Duran or Asar managed to pull it off, I don't think I'd be very shocked. But to me, that would also point to a intentional effort by the coaching staff to put those guys in more playmaking positions, whether that's Duran working out the elbow or Asar in transition, maybe getting like even some lead ball handling reps. So there's some flexibility here, but I think long story short is that J.I. is the de facto backup point guard on his team, even though there's still a good chance he starts. And that just feels like the safe guess.
Yeah, I think I'll go IV as well, with the caveat that, I would not be surprised if it's Jalen Duren. Again, I don't know that we always talk about how much they utilize Jalen Duren at the top of the key. They throw him the ball at the top of the key. I've done video breakdowns on this. I did some season reviews or previews, whichever way you want to look at it, over on the Substack. And I really highlighted how they throw the ball to Jalen Duren at the top of the key and then run actions on both sides of the floor. Duren gets a lot of assists because of, little DHO drop passes and stuff like that. And so I think there's an opportunity for Duren. Asar, you mentioned. I think Karis LeVert. So I think YouTube user probably sums it up well here. Ivy, if all goes well. LeVert, if things go just okay. Asar, if something insanely fun happens. And then here's an interesting one, because remember at Summer League, one of my biggest takeaways from Ron Holland was the passing. Outside of, the jumper looking more fluid and stuff like that. Our guy Harry says, how much do Ron's assists go up if he's doing those drive and dump offs like he did in Summer League? Does Ron factor into this, or do we think the minutes in year two are still low enough that it's hard to get him into these type of predictions?
Yeah, I think it's hard to get him into these types of predictions. I do see his assists going up, but I also don't necessarily see, Ron having that same type of role as he had in Summer League, right? Will he have drive and dump off opportunities? Sure. But I don't necessarily see that being something that's sustaining a big percentage of his possessions, more or less. He's probably coming in 20, 25 minutes some nights and, just giving you what he gave last season. I don't think they're going to tell Ron to check in and be like, we want to see you make a very, very intentional playmaking effort. Do you want him to do that? Yeah, but I think his strengths are more so, getting downhill, defense, things like that. So, his assists go up, but I don't necessarily, compared to other guys on the team, I don't know if he's going to be that secondary ball handler to the extent of a J.I. or a SAR.
Yep, I agree. Let's go to a short break here, O2, and then we'll come back. I definitely want to do the blocks, and then if we want to run through the other ones for fun, we can do that. And then we were going to do just some NBA in general awards predictions. I don't know that I want to do all of them, but I think at least 3 of them would be a lot of fun. So we'll definitely get to 3 of those. But before we do that kind of general NBA stuff, I want to at least talk about who we think will lead the team in blocks per game. We'll get right into that right after this.
All right, we are back with segment 3, and we're going to get into who leads the team in blocks per game next season, which is a bit of an interesting debate. So personally, I'm going to stick with Isaiah Stewart. He led them last season with 1.4 blocks. Duren was right behind him with 1.1, and then nobody else cracked a full block per game. Assuming the minutes stay steady, you're probably clocking in at about 1.5 blocks again if you're Isaiah Stewart. But, of course, Duren could take a step forward in that category, and then maybe there's an argument for Asar as a dark horse as well. So, I'm going to go Duren number 2 in blocks. But if you say Asar, I'm not gonna argue against it.
So this is what's funny to me, Omar. Isaiah Stewart, you said it, led the team in blocks at 1.4, which is crazy. To me, that's absolutely insane for a guy who averaged less than 20 minutes a game. I think Duren's, I'm going to click on Duren's. I want to see how his went throughout the season and if it went up. Because it felt like it did. Oh, this isn't going to do it because it doesn't give blocks per game. It just gives it total, let me see if I can do the game logs. But I feel like for Duren, we saw an increase throughout the season. So, and then here's I mean, do you really want to bet against Asar potentially doing it? Right? Yeah. So
Duren against him doing it.
Duren's really didn't. He was at 1.1 from the calendar year on. So, man, you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb. I think Asar Thompson is a all NBA caliber defender. I'm gonna say Asar Thompson. 0-2. I'm gonna say Asar Thompson. Let's have some fun here early on a Tuesday morning. I'm gonna say Asar Thompson leads the team in blocks. I don't think Duren would be too far behind. I think Cade Cunningham is a fun conversation as well. He was behind. I mean, Stewart only played the one game. He was barely behind Jalen Duren. I don't think Cade can do it for a full season. I did predict that he would average 1 block, but I don't think he's going to lead the team. What was the per 100 if we look at blocks last year?
Yeah. So
Stu's numbers are silly, man. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Stu was like far and away number 1.
Yes.
3.4.
And then our guy Paul Reed, man.
And then Paul Reed at 2.7. And then Duren at 2.1. And then Asar at 1.4. So what's interesting is that Asar is at 1.4 and Tobias was at 1.2. And then Kate was at 1.
Hold on real quick. I love Tobias. I can't stand the way the NBA stats their blocks, though, because I would guess half of Tobias's blocks are not when his hands are above his head. He gets blocks. He gets a block stat when he digs at the ball, but it's just like if it's a shot attempt, and I don't know exactly what the criteria is, but I only realize this from watching games so much on Synergy now. I almost never watch games live just for time purposes, but a lot of his are like a player has left the air. And I guess in regards to that, that's a block, right? The player's in the air, they're going for a shot. Tobias's are just fascinating because very rarely are they actually where his hands are above his head. But
that's why stocks in some ways to be were useful because, there are scenarios where what counts as a block is like a little bit up for debate. Like definitely watching games live, like sometimes I'll see guys, I'm like, well, he had like 3 steals. And then you check the box score after, and it's like, okay, I guess some of those were tracked differently. Like sometimes, depending on what happened after the shot, it might just be a missed shot if you're just digging at the ball. But I was surprised to see Asar and Tobias so close because, I mean, just off an eye test. And, I mean, Asar obviously is the guy who has a little bit more vertical pop, so.
Yeah, so Aruna says, I want to get to the comments here. Definitely Stu, he doesn't have to worry about foul trouble. That's a fair point, right? So in his 20 minutes a night, he is able to go after as much as he can. And Steven Suggs, could Asar be in the blocks conversation?
100%.
Chili says, Cade going to do it. Love it. YouTube user Duren just doesn't have good enough fundamentals to be a great block man. He had flashy blocks occasionally. And M. Wesley, got to get Stu more minutes in the all-defensive team love. Yeah, it's going to be tough. The thing with Stu is, I think Asar is going to catapult himself into that. And then to get 2 guys in that conversation, your team defensive rating just has to be really, really good. Again, I think I've referenced this. They're all fully out now. We had Isaiah Stewart just barely outside our top 25 defenders in the NBA. And then we had Asar, I think, at number 16 or something like that. Chili brings up a good point. Asar being point of attack defender makes it harder to get volume blocks. Great point because, less opportunities as the low man. I think with Asar, though, it's like these transition blocks. He's a guy that can get blocks on the ball that a lot of guys can't. Before we move on, let's go to this. YouTube user says, who leads the team in stocks? So let's just combine the steals and blocks together. Yeah, that's the answer, right? The steals with him is pretty significant. Yeah. He actually, it looks like... Yeah, he led the team in stocks last year. Actually,
he averaged a steal, like 1.7 steals in 23 minutes last year. He is. I mean, I think he's closer to Dyson Daniels in steals than whoever the second best player on the Pistons is. To be completely honest, so
yeah. I mean, when you look at this is funny. When you look per 36, Paul Reed is the best actually, and we all know that B-ball Paul gets in and gets disruptive. I mean, then you go to like Sasser and Ron Holland per 36. So yeah, I think the answer there is Asar Thompson. So Okay, I'll throw out some others, and then if we don't want to, we can get into them, or we can get to some of the All NBA stuff. We talked about only going about 45 minutes here. This has been really good conversation. We appreciate everybody in the chat, but with it being middle of September, we're about to get to training camp and some of that stuff, but we may keep this a little shorter, get me to work on time so I don't get fired. So we kind of did all the disruption numbers. So we could do charges drawn. That was obviously Tim Hardaway Jr.'s stat last year. Best transition player, Mr. Clutch, or we can go into the NBA awards. O2. In any of those for the Pistons between charges drawn, best transition player, or Mr. Clutch that you have overwhelming thoughts on.
Yeah, I don't really have overwhelming thoughts on charges per game because to me that's more like a intentionality stat, and like a lot of guys just aren't necessarily going for charges. So I think that's just a stat that's gonna have a lot of variance. Like I couldn't tell you who was number 2 on charges last season because
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, because obviously Tim Hardaway Jr. was number 1 because he went from most often. So I don't really have anything on charges drawn. Best transition player, like I'm just going to go with Sar just because I think he has. Well, maybe there is some debate there. I would go with Sar just because he is such a weapon in transition. And then Mr. Clutch, like for me, that's just Cade, and I don't even know who number 2 would be. Cade's the guy who's going to be taking the last shot a lot of nights. So.
Yeah, I think I would go. I'm trying to find the charges drawn stats. The transition one is the interesting one because I think Asar has an argument for it, but like I hate to go anything against Cade Cunningham whenever we're talking. When we're talking, scoring in any capacity. So I think Asar has an argument for it. Ron Holland, I think this is a stat where he could get involved as well. So I think that one's interesting. I'd be, depending on, Dunk. Okay, so we have some fun one here. Chili says Ivy for Mr. Clutch. I was actually thinking Duncan Robinson. Like, what if Duncan Robinson just becomes like, big time, hits some 3-pointers into the game. All right, I got the charges drawn. This is hilarious. Okay, 2022. Okay, let's play a game. How many charges drawn do you think Detroit had last year, Omari? Total, as a team.
Yeah, I know Hardaway was around 20.
Yep, that's correct. So how many do you think they had as a team?
So if Hardaway had 20, then I'm just going to guess as a team they had 30.
They had 26.
Okay. Wow. So he had all but
Tim Hardaway Jr. had 18 of said 26. This is the regular season only.
Yeah.
We have a tie for number 2. Guess who number 2 was? Guess who the 2 players tied at number 2 were?
Cade and Asar.
Cade Cunningham is one.
It's not Asar.
Not Asar.
Paul Reed.
That's a great answer. Paul Reed took 1.
Okay.
Lindy Waters the third. Here's the list, Omari.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Okay.
Tim Hardaway Jr. at 18. Cade Cunningham at 2 with 2. Lindy Waters the third tied for second with 2. And then all of Asar Thompson, Dennis Schroeder, Paul Reed, Simone Fontecchio with 1. So Pistons fans probably shouldn't be putting a Piston player takes a charge on their bingo cards this year because of the 26 charges taken last year, 18, 21, 2 of the 26 are no longer on the roster this season. So
no, most guys are not taking charges. Like that's just it's a very specialized skill. I feel like in today's league. So
Chili says Ivy for Mr. Clutch. Caleb backs that up. Had some game winners. We've seen
true.
that.
That's fair.
Chili says Duncan for charges. Listen, man, you take 3 next year and you're leading the team. So it could literally be anybody on the roster. Let's go.
Duncan Robinson had 8 charges last year.
There we go. Good.
So,
nice.
Okay. Good shout out. Like, because I was not thinking about the newcomers. So
there we go.
Okay, Duncan, I see you.
I'm going to go Javonte Green. My guy Javonte Green's going to lead the team. All right, let's end the episode with some NBA stuff. MVP. Who's your MVP?
Giannis.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's a good one. I like
Yeah.
it.
My guess is just with everything Milwaukee's going through, and I think every season he's had, essentially since his last MVP has been MVP caliber. And, unfortunately, you're going against, absurd seasons by Jokic and Embiid. But, like, Jokic is going to have, like, a voter fatigue issue. Embiid's a complete wild card, as Philly is, and Giannis just feels like a pretty safe choice. I could also see Luka.
So I'll go Luka. I like the Giannis call. I'm with you. Like I feel like the only thing with Jokic is there was a lot of arguments for him last year. If they end up top 2 in the West, like I could see that coming back. Like there was just such a big. I'm also just interesting to see if there's already Thunder fatigue. Like SGA wins MVP, they win the title. If people are still fans of OKC, or if they're already tired of them after one title, especially with how young that team is. So I'll go Luka here. I think Giannis is a really fun call. I don't want to do most improved. That's hard. I think you got to do a little more research for that. DPOY. Who's your defensive player of the year this season? I mean, you can go.
Interesting one because
you can go with the status quo, but games played is that one that so.
Yeah, I could see. It's a bit of a dark horse, even though he already has one. But I could see a bounce back season for the Grizzlies because their main issue really has just been health.
Okay.
And if they have a bounce back season and they're a true West contender, Jaren just got paid. Like I could see Jaren going for DPOY again. And I think some of that would just be narrative driven. With all the issues Memphis has had, they were in the limelight and they kind of fell out. I think that'll help his case. But if Atlanta takes a big step forward, you're going to have like a Dyson Daniels crowd. So, so we'll see. But I'm going to go Jaren.
Listen, I love Dyson Daniels. He's got to get better at the point of the attack for me to buy into that. I will say, though, he is one of my personal board. He is one of my top 10 defenders in the NBA. So I think any one of those 10 guys, obviously not all of them are going to qualify. I mean, I got to look at the top of my board. I think Wemby is the answer here. As Aruna said, Jokic is always preseason MVP until you see who's playing well. I kind of agree with that. I understand that. I think Wemby is always the preseason DPOY until you see how many games he's going to play. If it's not Wemby, I think Amin Thompson has squarely driven himself into that narrative and conversation. And then I think Mobley and Chet, obviously Mobley, already there. I think Chet, if he played the games, just because if OKC's defense is historically good and he has the games and everybody has decided he's the best defender on that defense, I think there's a real argument for him as well. So last one, rookie of the year. Let's do rookie of the year, and then we'll cut it off there. So you have Cooper Flagg in Dallas, Dylan Harper in San Antonio. Obviously, he's starting the year, dealing with an injury. Edgecombe in Philly, Ace Bailey in Utah, Trey Johnson in Washington, the guys in New Orleans. There's like 17 of them in Brooklyn. And then you can get into the dark horses. Young Hansen in Portland. Who's your rookie of the year?
Cooper Flagg. I can't think of a better situation a number one pick has entered. I just can't. You're joining a playoff caliber roster from day one. You're Cooper Flagg. You've been the dominant player in your class for a while now. And it just lines up for him to have like a monster season. Opportunity, support, he's got everything you would want. So to me, that's his award to lose.
My only concern with Cooper, and I don't disagree with you, Mari, because that team's going to win games. They may not win a ton. Like, I don't know how good they'll be, but I don't think they're going to be like the bottom of the West, right?
Like voters hate when rookies lose.
That's right. So rookies
get penalized for that. So.
Correct. More so than ever before. So I think Trey Johnson could put up big numbers in Washington, but they're going to lose. I think Ace Bailey might put up big numbers in Utah, but they're going to lose, right? And so that's what's interesting with the top guys of the draft is especially the top 2, and then even the top 3, depending on health in Philly. like those teams are going to win some games. Like I'm not saying they're going to be like lock playoff teams, but those teams are going to win some games. My thing with Cooper is I actually wonder how much they play him out of position, because I think his natural position is the 4, and that roster is just very congested. But because of that, he may get to do a little bit more than what you would expect on a team with guys like Anthony Davis. And especially till Kyrie comes back, there may be the ball in his hand. So I think that's probably a good call. I think Dylan Harper's in an interesting situation in San Antonio, again, where it's like Steph Castle's not a great shooter and Jeremy Sohan's not a great shooter. You know, they have some shooting concerns on that team. And, you know, how much can they play these different guys together? I think the dark horse for me is VJ Edgecombe. If Philly wins a little bit and, you know, he's really ingrained in the rotation and really playing minutes, I think he would have a chance there. I mentioned a couple guys that I think are on losing teams but put up big numbers.
Derek Queen, I mean, assuming like health would be a factor.
Yeah, because he was already injured as well, you know.
But he's on a team where he could put up big numbers, so I could see him being in that conversation. I just don't know if they're going to have, you know, wins. But, you know, from a number standpoint, him and Jeremiah Fears, I think, are in pretty good positions. So I don't see them having better seasons than Cooper Flagg. But,
yeah,
you know, if you're talking voting, like I could see one or both of those guys being pretty high just off of opportunity.
Yeah, just trying to, you know, like you say, you're looking for team, you know, players that maybe the opportunity. It's weird because like the Nets drafted, you know, some of these teams drafted so many guys. It's like even on their own teams, like even Young Hansen with where they took him, but like Klingon's on that roster.
Right.
You
know, like I like Edgecombe as a pick. You know, it just seems like they have a lot of guys sort of like in like that 6'4" range. Like just from a lineup standpoint.
You're not wrong.
You know, they're just kind of interesting. You got Tyrese Maxey. You've got the rookie last year whose name is slipping me.
Yeah, Jared McCain.
Jared McCain, who's coming back from injury. And then VJ Edgecombe and all those guys.
And Grimes, depending on what happens. I mean, I think Grimes is going to be on the Sixers, whether it's the QO or something gets done. So.
Yeah, so we'll see as far as that. But.
I mean, Knipple could put up, you know, if he really knocks down shots and LaMelo plays and Brandon Miller has a bounce back year off his injury.
And they're not just completely trash.
And
watchable.
I think there's a world where the Hornets are like flirting with the play-in game if LaMelo plays. Like, listen, I'm not the biggest LaMelo Ball fan in terms of the way he plays, but he's obviously talented. Like, there's a world where in the East that team wins enough games to be relevant in the play-in conversation. And I think there's a world where Knipple plays a bunch of minutes and gets a bunch of really open looks. So you're right. It's Cooper. It's going to be the narrative to start the year, and it's hard to break those narratives sometimes. And then there's a bunch of names after that. So
I have one more dark horse.
Yeah.
Deke Clifford. He's on a Kings team that
I refuse to say anything positive about the Sacramento Kings right now, but go ahead.
They're going to have to blow that roster up mid-season probably.
I love so many players on the roster. O2. I love Zach LaVine. I realize the contract. I love Keegan Murray. I love Keon Ellis. I love Malik Monk. I love Nick Clifford. Sabonis is interesting. The roster makes zero sense to me, though.
Yeah, and like if it clicks, maybe Nick Clifford doesn't get the minutes, but you know if it doesn't click and you're like, okay, it's fire sale time, and Nick Clifford's getting a lot of minutes through the back half of the season. It always seems like there's a guard.
Older player, too. Older player, too.
It just always seems like every year there's a guard who just catches everybody by surprise. And, like, Nick Clifford, I think, checks those boxes for me. So
in that same vein, I think Cedric Howard's worth mentioning just because Chili, I think we're out of, like, the true Rookie of the Year conversation.
No, he's not winning Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, just like rookies who may, like, make all rookie team and stuff. I think Cedric Howard is another one just because Memphis seems to do a good job with those guys. So, all right, I got to go to work. But no, guys, yeah. We're on to like not Rookie of the Year, but just like all rookie type stuff. Great conversation this morning, O2. Sometimes I go into these ones, I'm like, man, are we going to get 45 minutes out of this, or are we going to be scrambling? I had a question I was going to ask you just in case, like to make sure we got there. And quite honestly, we got 55 minutes of really good conversation and content, I think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you're listening after the fact, please rate, subscribe, help us continue to grow. I know things are slow right now, but the build up is about to start to happen here. Make sure you're listening to Wes and Blake over on the Pin Down. Make sure you're reading Omari on the Detroit Free Press. And again, make sure you subscribe to the Motor City Hoops Substack. More content going to start coming probably in the next couple of weeks. Again, I have multiple content creators over there that will be putting out multiple different things. My guy Harry from Order of the Blazing Horse. A couple other people I think are going to start putting some stuff out as well. So make sure you subscribe. Fully free. Always will be. Otherwise, hope everybody has a great Tuesday, has a great week. And O2, take it away, my guy.
Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan. Big thanks to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols. And big shout out to West Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.